And welcome back, everyone, to Zanpakuto Creation Series. Today's comes to us from Shadows82, who asked the question, what is Zanpakuto of Tommy Oliver, a.k.a. the Green Ranger, a.k.a. the White Ranger, a.k.a. the Red Ranger, a.k.a. the Black Ranger? God, how many Rangers? How many times did Tommy become a different Ranger color? He's had like 4 different Ranger, because he was the Xeno Ranger for a while. I know he was like the Red Ranger in Xeno for a little bit. Was it Zeno? Which Ranger was he again? One second. Someone's kind of tried to correct me a little bit on the fact that he wasn't the Red Ranger. In he wasn't the Red Ranger at one point, and I don't believe that's the case because he has been the Red Ranger. I guarantee he's been. Yeah, he was reading here. He was the Zeo Red 5 Ranger and the Red Turbo Ranger. So I knew he was a Red Ranger at some point. In fact, he's been a Ranger 5 different times. Honestly, Green Ranger's a classic one. I've actually always liked the White Ranger the best. And honestly, I liked him I was in my 20s by the time Dino Thunder came out, but I liked him I liked at least his design as the Black Dino Ranger. I thought that was a really cool design. It makes sense. He was a White Ranger and then he was a Black Ranger. Rest in peace, Jason David Frank. That was the actor who played him. You have Jason David Frank. Anywho, regardless, with a Zanpakuto, nothing would really change in terms of Werther's Ranger status. So the question now becomes, what type of Zanpakuto would he have? What would his abilities be? Spear, all that. And when always looking at characters, I gotta try to at least look at characters they're kind of similar to, because that can give us an idea then of where the Zanpakuto can go in terms of like ability and all that. Honestly, I do see him similar to like a Renji. Serious, a little high-headed at points, but as he matured and got older, he definitely came into his own. And he definitely took his role more seriously. Even though it's not to say he didn't take it seriously, just like Renji did, but he grew more mature, more powerful, all that. And he was always still skilled. So I like him a bit to a Renji, although I think I would go a little bit more harder on the Keto / Elemental, whatever. Harder on the ability side of things with him over Renji. So his Zanpakuto, generally speaking, is a melee, but it does have a Elemental / Keto ability to it. But hold for that. Its standard form would be that of a katana. Its release would be grind down. Although I think he maybe changed the release because the grind down came before I really came up with these Zanpakuto ability. So maybe it'd be like cut hot and swing and stab cold, something like that. Basically, and I got the idea for the name, honestly, from watching Ahsoka, which I'm currently watching with my dad, due to the 2 villains being named after the wolf that chases the sun and wolf that chases the moon. So I thought, why not have a Zanpakuto name that? A wolf that chases the sun is the name of the Shikai. The Bankai is the wolf that chases the moon. It comes full circle. Or Taiyo Okame and Suki Okame. Obviously, its spirit would be that of a wolf, but a bright wolf, a very warm, welcoming wolf in its Shikai form. In its Bankai form, it would almost take like not like the humanoid werewolf form, but a dark, cold, harsh-looking wolf. Very, very monstrous-looking wolf in its Bankai spirit form. It's now the formula. That was what I kind of wrestled with the Zanpakuto, because I didn't want to go with the dagger. I just didn't. I don't think translating to the ability I gave it, it wouldn't have really worked out well. Now, granted, his dagger is longer than, say, an actual dagger. It's closer to... It's not quite a wakizashi in terms of length. It's like a little short. Design-wise, it's nothing like a wakizashi, but like lengthwise, it's similar to a wakizashi. It's like a little bit shorter. So I want to say it's like a couple inches shorter than a wakizashi. So I'm like, no, I don't want to go there. But what I did like is maybe leaning more towards the White Ranger angle of it. Where him using Saba, which it was his sword. which could talk, which we're not doing that here. But basically having a sort of scimitar saber, but one that's a little jagged. It looks almost like a wolf's jaw, basically. It's got the big hook there, almost looking like the fin of a tail. And yeah, that would be his Zanpakuto. And it'd be perfectly fine for melee combat. But the main Shikai ability would be to, as he swings it, it gains more and more friction and just superheats itself. And as long as he keeps swinging it, it will continue to get hotter. The faster and harder he swings it, the hotter it can get. To the point where it could get so hot, it could actually start to blind the opponent. And it could theoretically cut through anything, like, no pun intended, a hot knife through butter. Now, obviously, it would start to cool down the moment he stops swinging it, but the thing about, combat is, he's constantly going to be in combat with an opponent when he's using this, so even if it stops for a few moments, it's going to take a while for it to cool down, especially if he really starts to build up the heat on there. So I like this as the basic ability because it represents his some of the more hot-headed moments he's had, some of the more headstrong moments he's had in the earlier series, that passion that's in there, that drive. But then the Bankai comes, and what would happen here, now I wanted to go one way, but I realized it's too similar to Ikaku's Bankai, so instead I decided his Bankai would be, and I'm going to get like a double blade, I'm going to pull up a picture here. Or actually, you know what? Zabuza Zanpakuto. Okay. Zabuza's sword. Or the Executioner blade. I don't need the sword power, I just need the sword. A picture of the sword, which I don't even know if I have a picture of his Executioner blade available on handy. But this is in essence what I'm kind of picturing. Not the actual sword itself, mind you. But in essence, give me 1 second. I need the visual aid. I didn't have it ready, but the visual aid will really help me here to kind of solidify my point here. Which I really should, by the way, be doing more visuals with this just to make it a bit more engaging than you just hearing my dulcet tones all the time. And I did that for the first couple of videos, but after a while I kind of fell off it. Because it's kind of just easy to talk and just have an image in the screen. But so there's Zabuza's Zanpakuto, or Zabuza's Executioner blade. That's not Zabuza himself, if I'm not mistaken. That was his the previous wielder of the Execution blade, if I'm not mistaken. But think that with maybe just a slightly longer handle and a different blade reverse with a reverse grip on there. Now I think I have done something similar design-wise before like this. I'm currently going through my other Zanpakuto because I've got my booklet here. I think I've done something similar to this, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, Naruto's Zanpakuto Shikai is of a similar design, but is different. Let's see here. Was it Shikai, Manipulate, Grab? Nope, that's not. Nope, that was my Zanpakuto. Deadpool, probably nope. Nope. No, I've done a lot of these now. Holy crap, I have filled up this book quite a bit. Anyway, the point being is it would be double-bladed. It would be a giant double-bladed version of Zabuza's blade. But what is it doing beyond that, though, is the question, for obvious reasons. And the answer to that is one blade is manipulating the heat. It still has the same effect. Now it's going beyond just superheating the blade. Now that blade, it's letting oxygen in the air. It can create fire. Obviously, pumping some Ryatsu in there can pumping some Ryatsu in there can maybe do like flame effects. The other side, though, is the exact opposite. It's a blade that when it spins, it gets colder and colder and colder. And in theory, could reach the absolute zero that Rukia's Haka no Togane could reach. To swing it like that, though, would be extremely, or swing it that fast for that long would be very difficult for a blade this size, particularly because you're also up to the counter of the other blade, which would be where training comes in, maybe using your Ryatsu to help suppress one of the blade's effects. But in essence, you can kind of create a frost and an ice. And the question would be, well, what exactly is the ultimate ability of this sword then? Because generally speaking, a Zanpakuto cannot manipulate two different elements. Now, there have been exceptions. I had one where, one Zanpakuto a while back, where the user created basically burning ice. It's not free. It doesn't freeze. It burns. It's hot ice. But it's just the fact that it's manipulating something that in a state that's not normally manipulated. I had one where it was boiling water. It was water manipulation, but it was still affecting the temperature. I had in Naruto's, if you want to go ever back and watch my Naruto video, Naruto's did manipulate two elements, but there was a specific reason it manipulated two elements, because it wasn't an elemental Zanpakuto in the traditional sense. It was a storm. It represented a hurricane, an absolute devastating storm. And so that's why it could manipulate two elements, because it was the base crux of the storm that was manipulating wind and lightning and its Shikai, and then the rain came and it ultimately had the full ability. What this Zanpakuto is actually doing when it's all said is controlling temperature. It manipulates temperature for effect. And its ultimate technique actually would basically be spinning this until both the heated side of the blade and the cold side of the blade, the temperatures mix. And if you have a cold front meet a hot front, you are in essence creating a massive storm that's concentrated straight at the opponent. And with enough training, you could easily just, in essence, create a small hurricane that just comes straight at the opponent and just allows right into them with wind, water, lightning, and all that in between, even thunder. Now, does this make it similar to Naruto's Zanpakuto? A little bit, I will say that, but it's not obviously one-to-one. Naruto can actually manipulate the elements with his blade straight out in Shikai alone, and I did a much different thing with his Bankai, so yeah. But I like the idea of the cold, more cool, mature side of Tommy coming into play here. And it's still being predominantly a melee weapon. Bankai still allows him some range, but it's still predominantly used in melee. He just now has more effects with it. Could I see a function of this Zanpakuto where he's able to snap it in two? No, I actually don't like that in terms of a concept. I think that makes it too versatile. Now, I could see a scenario if there was ever a manga, like fan-made Bleach manga, where Tommy is a Shinigami fighting his Bankai. He's struggling, but then the opponent slices through the hilt, or the not hilt, the handle of his blade, and now he's dual wielding both of these simultaneously and getting the full advantage of them at once. So I can see him be like, "Oh, you done goofed. I accidentally didn't know this could happen. Maybe I should think about asking my Zanpakuto if we can make this a constant." Now, what are the weaknesses of this Zanpakuto, though? Well, in Shikai, it's still a close-range weapon, first and foremost. Beyond that, though, any opponent who has a cooling ability, that Zanpakuto would struggle against that. It would severely struggle against that. Because the whole point of the Zanpakuto's base ability is to manipulate temperature and to get hotter and hotter and hotter. But if you're cooling down as you're fighting, this would actually be... Rukia would be a weird opponent for this Zanpakuto, because she's so cold she could reach absolute zero, but then again, that blade is so hot that it theoretically should counteract that level of cold and actually do massive damage. Now, that being said, if she manages to hit the Zanpakuto with her sword, maybe because it's absolute zero, it's negated, and her Bankai would certainly negate it. Otherwise, Kaien's Nejibana, which manipulates water, could douse this blade really quick. In fact, it could be a big problem, because when enough, reishi infused water, liquid, whatever, for cooling effects, could actually crack the Zanpakuto. Now, obviously, Zanpakuto can come back and reform in Shikai as long as there's spiritual pressure or spiritual energy from the user. But still, that would be a severe problem. Range, opponents with cooling effects, and opponents who already attack with fire and heat. Because if someone can match your heat, well, you're not going to be cutting through them like a hot knife through butter. Ryujin, Engetsu, and even Tobayume would not be good opponents for this Zanpakuto, because their fire abilities kind of trump this Zanpakuto's fire abilities to a certain degree. Now, the Bankai, though, the Bankai definitely loses a lot of those weaknesses. It can have some ranged attacks now. It's got more range just in terms of a melee weapon. It's hitting with a lot more force. The problem here would honestly just be competing elements, just stronger individuals. It still may be able to attack with range, but it's not infallible. There isn't really a clear-cut weakness beyond the standard higher ratio opponents could counteract effects. So, yeah, ultimately, this is the Zanpakuto, I think, for Tommy Oliver. But let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.